FBI just dropped 3.5 million files, and it is incredible. Huge bombshells about some of the most powerful people on the planet. I can't believe they let some of this stuff out. I mean, it is stunning. Honestly, one of the biggest lies we've seen is the idea that the FBI could possibly come to us and say, not only is there not a client list, there was no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals. Guys, we're about to see planned blackmail to one of the most powerful people on the planet, and that is Bill Gates. Listen, there's a lot we're gonna get to, but we have to start with probably the craziest revelation here, which is Jeffrey Epstein emailing himself about Bill Gates. Now, if you don't know, Bill Gates and Epstein had a relationship post 2008. That's a big year. You're going to hear a lot today because 2008 was the time that Epstein pled guilty for soliciting of somebody under the age of 18. He was a predator at this point. Everybody knew it. Now, eventually, Bill Gates would get divorced when all of this came out. Melinda Gates said it was part of the direct cause for the divorce. She said she met Epstein and said he was evil.
He was evil personified.
So you have to understand, this is like Bill Gates' kryptonite. He's one of the richest men on the planet. He's got this huge philanthropy arm. But this relationship with Epstein has been a huge problem for him. And Epstein appears to have known that because in 2013, Bill Gates appears to be distancing himself from Jeffrey Epstein. And Epstein seems to have a problem with that. He says, I assume the dedication to our relation went both ways. Larry has now asked me to recommit to a confidentiality agreement. Basically, he's got to shut up about his relationship with Bill Gates. And this is where the blackmail starts. And it comes in the form of like, if I were you, I would do X if I were the type of guy that you should be. He says, in that regard, I suggest I buy you the house that you had your heart set on. In addition to 5 years of severance, we'll buy you out of the investment contract we agreed upon, 30 to 40% of an $100 million partnership for $30 million in today's terms. That's what I would have done had I been in your shoes. Then he lays out what he has on Bill Gates, or what he says he has. Quote, to add insult to injury, you subsequently, with tears in your eyes, implore me to delete the emails I had regarding your STD. Your request that I provide you antibiotics that you could surreptitiously give to Melinda, and the description of your I mean, this is insane. It's completely insane. It's like basically laying out in text form, I would give me millions of dollars, and I can't believe you're asking me to delete the message where you were going to give STD medication to your wife without her knowledge. I mean, it's complete. It's crazy. It's just completely obvious what he's doing here. It's just a nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Here's what you should do. But now that coming out after Epstein's death, this looks really bad for Gates, obviously, because you usually wouldn't blackmail somebody for something that's completely false or fake. I mean, maybe he did that. But we also know Bill Gates had affairs. Obviously, Melinda credits it for their divorce. So it's hard to believe there was nothing sketchy going on. Bill Gates, of course, maintains that it was completely above board. He says the fact this allegation was in here just shows how much Epstein was willing to defame people. But Epstein lays it out. He says he helped Bill get drugs in order to deal with the consequences of sex with Russian girls, facilitating his illicit trysts with married women, and to being asked to provide Adderall for bridge tournaments. Look, guys, this is exactly what we suspected the whole time. Epstein was providing services to rich people and expecting payment via blackmail. Now you might say, and it's true, that we don't know that Epstein ultimately sent that version of an email to Gates. All we know is he sent that to himself. He may have planned the blackmail and just been drafting something. But what we do know are two things. The Wall Street Journal has reported that Gates was threatened by Epstein over an affair. We also know that after this blackmail email Jeffrey sent to himself was written, eventually Gates sent a $2 million donation to MIT directed by Jeffrey Epstein, which is a bit weird if you had distanced yourself from the guy and y'all had this big falling out. Now again, do we know for sure that Bill Gates did all of that? No, of course we don't. But do I think Bill Gates was innocently looking for charity advice from a after he already pled guilty? No, I don't. I'm sorry, I'm not that gullible. And speaking of not that gullible, we've been lied to also by another richest guy on the planet. Geez, it's a shock why they don't want to put this out. Elon Musk, who has been saying for years that it is a lie that he went to Epstein's island. In fact, he says he refused to go. From Elon, he says, Epstein tried to get me to go to his island. I refused. He says, anyone pushing this false narrative deserves complete contempt. Later responding to another headline, which said Elon Musk planned trip to Epstein's private island. And he says, this is false. But of course, we start to dig through the files and we can see on Epstein's calendar that Elon Musk is booked in December 6th of 2014. But maybe you don't believe that. That's just the word of Jeffrey Epstein. But maybe you'll believe the word of Elon Musk, who was caught emailing Jeffrey Epstein to go to his island post the guilty plea. Elon Musk writes, "Will be in BVI St. Bart's area over the holidays. Good time to visit." Jeffrey Epstein says, "I will send a heli for you." Later, Elon Musk writes to Epstein, probably just to Lula and me, his ex-wife, what day and night would be the wildest party on your island? The world's richest man is asking the most pedophile man for the wildest party on his island. And then it gets more explicit. In 2012, remember, this is the guy who said, "I refused it. I could never do that," right? It's false. But here in 2012, he says, "Do you have any parties planned? I've been working to the edge of my sanity this year. I really want to hit the party scene in St. Bart's or elsewhere and let loose. The invitation is much appreciated, but a peaceful island experience is the opposite of what I'm looking for." Guys, he can't even play the "I went to go study math" excuse, which is what all these guys do. They say, "Hey, I just went to go talk to scientists." Elon's like, "Hey, I don't want to do that. I'm looking for a party. That's what I'm here to do." And then Jeffrey Epstein writes, "Understood, I will see you on St. Barth. The ratio on my island might make your ex-wife uncomfortable." I can't believe these guys are lying to us and people are swallowing it still, thinking that Elon Musk had nothing to do with this guy. So again, that's 2012. That's 2014. But guess what? There's another time in 2013. I mean, this seems like a yearly thing with the boys. Here, once again, Elon Musk writes, "We'll be in the BVI St. Bart's area over the holidays." Again, is there a good time to visit? Jeffrey Epstein, any day, 1st to the 8th, play it by ear if you want, always space for you. They then plan some more, and you might think, well, if Elon ever told the truth, this is when he has to reject, right? Because he said, "I refused." But actually, it appears to be one of those cases where, like, your friend says, like, "Oh, bro, I dumped her." And actually, it was the other way. Yeah, it turns out Elon didn't dump the dumped Elon. He says, "Bad news. Unfortunately, my schedule will keep me in New York. Hopefully, we can schedule another time in the future." Jeffrey Epstein let Elon down. That's actually the real story. Is the reason he didn't go in 2013 was because he couldn't go. Jeffrey Epstein was not there. Guys, I mean, how blatant do they have to make it before we start to just see through it, right? When they issue these ridiculous denials, they're totally associated with the guy after the guilty plea. They lie through their teeth, but they can't even keep their story straight. I mean, that's what's crazy. They're not even competent at this. They get caught in their own lies all the time. Remember, the FBI's official story was they didn't blackmail. Well, before we even had these files, Howard Lutnick was on the record calling Jeffrey Epstein the greatest blackmailer ever.
So how come Bill Gates and all these other people could hang around him and not see what you saw? Or did they see it and ignore it? Or
No, they participated.
right.
That's what his MO was, get a massage, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume was on video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever.
Interesting. Okay, so Howard has a different perspective. Now, if you don't know, that guy, do you think he's just telling the truth there? Even this guy who's contradicting the official narrative, this guy literally lived next to Jeffrey Epstein. This guy who's like, "I'm going to tell the truth." Those guys participated. That guy lives next to Jeffrey Epstein. And by the way, he lied too. I love this video we're about to get into because this guy, Mr. He's the greatest blackmailer ever, does he know something we don't know? Because it's interesting, Mr. I'm his neighbor had to also explain how he had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. And he lays it out pretty simply. He goes, "Yep, I lived next to him, but in 2005, I had such a horrible experience that I knew I could never talk to him again."
He was your neighbor for 10 years. How well did you know him?
We move in 2005, okay? Jeffrey Epstein is arrested in like 2008, I think, or something like that.
Right.
So knock on the door. His assistant on like a Saturday says, "Mr. Epstein, your neighbor would like to invite you over for coffee." And there's a massage table in the middle
Ooh.
of the room. Massage table in the middle of your house? How often do you have a massage? And he says, "Every day." And then he like gets like weirdly close to me.
Ooh.
And he says, "And the right kind of massage."
Ooh.
Now my wife is standing here. So she looks at me and I look at her and we say, "I'm sorry, we have to go." And we left. And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again.
Well, he couldn't be more clear, could he, right? He says, hey, I may have been his next door neighbor, but I met him once before the 2008 guilty plea. Remember I said that was a big deal? And we got invited over, and it was like 5 seconds, and we left, and we realized he was a creep. We were out of there. He made this rude, lewd comment in front of my wife. I would never go see this guy. I mean, he makes it super clear he's gross.
So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.
These other guys, they may have participated.
They participated.
But Howard Lutnick, he could never. No, he's too good of a guy. Well, guess what we found in the old emails? Looky. It's Howard Lutnick writing in to Jeffy Boy in 2012. Hi, Jeff. We're landing in St. Thomas early afternoon, planning to head over. Where are you located? What's the exact location for my captain? Does Sunday evening for dinner sound good? Is this the guy you said made a lewd comment to your wife and, oh, I could never be in front of him? He's gross. Guess what the next email is? My boy's wife messaging in, saying we're headed towards you in St. Thomas. Later, the subject line, Jeffrey Epstein. Good morning, Howard. Jeffrey wished me to pass you along. Nice seeing you. They clearly met, and the guy is just lying about it to your face, to the American public's face, and they tried to hide it from us. I cannot emphasize this enough. They're lying through their teeth. You think this guy perfectly remembers a 2005, like walking in the guy's house? I remember exactly what I said to him. My wife and I looked at each other, and he wouldn't remember the 2012. I boated over to his private island for a dinner. Is that what we're really thinking? Is that what we're expected to believe? This is a momentary lapse in his judgment. No, these guys don't even care about being consistent. And they're all throwing each other under the bus. Don't you remember Elon Musk saying, the time to drop the really big bomb? Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they haven't been made public. My guy, you also are in the Epstein files, very clearly doing stuff you lied about, okay? So is Howard Lutnick, who says, yeah, Bill Gates, he's probably getting blackmailed because he participated. What did you do on the island over in 2012, Howard? Do we know that? I mean, does anyone care? Now, the last thing I want to talk about is some of the most explosive stuff. It's also, again, I have to say, unverified, okay? This is the NTOC, the FBI's National Threat Operations Center. And the challenge with confirming some of this is that these are anonymous tips, or they black them out at least, so we don't know who they are, and anyone can drop a tip. Now, that doesn't mean that you should disregard them. It just means we can't verify them. The other challenge is that the FBI has a heavy incentive to discredit anything with Donald Trump in it, just because he's in the White House right now, obviously. And so I want to be clear, there are notes related to some of these submissions where they say things like complainant was spoken to and deemed not credible. Additional research showed 3 separate redacted. You know, it's hard to tell how much this is the proper due diligence of the FBI, which they should be doing, of course, and not all complaints are credible. But also there's this obvious conflict of interest with the fact that the sitting president is in some of these complaints. But here they are for what it's worth. Complaint summary. Blank reported an unidentified female friend who was forced to perform on President Trump approximately 35 years ago in New Jersey. The friend told Alexis that she was approximately 13 to 14 years old when this occurred, and the friend allegedly bit President Trump while performing. The friend was allegedly hit in the face after she laughed about biting President Trump. The friend also said she was abused by Epstein. Later, there's very explosive claims about big parties with her, other younger girls, and older Victoria's Secret models, including Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. There's claims third hand about a female victim of Epstein's who wants to publish a book citing Leslie Wexner, Epstein, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Ghislaine Maxwell is in the videos as well. And it goes on like this for a while. Some of the complaints are just like very graphic, and obviously I'm gonna censor out some of it. But I should also mention the DOJ claims that some of these claims were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false, and if they had any shred of credibility, they would have certainly been weaponized against President Trump already. Now, I agree that if a complaint is timed right before an election, there definitely could be some other motivations to that. But it's also ridiculous to say that anything in the Epstein files, if it were true, would have come out already. Because why didn't we see the stuff about Bill Gates, for example? I mean, that stuff apparently has been sitting in here for a long time. And not only did no one talk about it, the FBI literally covered for it. I mean, they said that this was not the case. There are big claims against a lot of powerful people. Nobody in that file really wants to rock the boat or release the files because then they get in trouble and their buddies get in trouble, and that's a huge problem. So I don't really buy the idea that, oh, if it were true, it would have already gotten out. I don't buy that. That's why we need transparency. That's why it's important these files are out. But this is just a look at a small fraction of the files. And over the next few weeks, we're going to go through all of the major findings we can from this 3.5 million page document dump. But seriously, think about how discrediting this has been, not only to this administration, but to so many rich and powerful people who have lied through their teeth happily towards you in order to hide their relationship with this man that many of them held post guilty plea. And some of them, now we know, Epstein prepared blackmail for them and, according to reports, threatened.